Let's go! When thinking of a place to make my first video, I figured why not start with what is essentially the beginning of the video game industry, that being Pong. To me, there are a few things that come to mind when it comes to Pong. One is, well, the 1970s, and as a Gen Z gamer, another thing is prehistory and dinosaurs. Pong is one of the oldest commercially available video games, and it's a very simple game, lacking most of the modern associations with games, and even some of the more modern well-known trappings of retro arcade games, because Pong, unlike many of its later contemporaries, does not feature a high-score system. Rather, it's a simple table tennis-style game featuring two rectangular paddles and a square that the player bounces back and forth. The object of the game is again similar to tennis. The graphics and gameplay are, well, at best, very simple, yet this also makes the game simple to understand and very pick up and play, which likely helped to contribute to the game's success. The game is credited as being the game that essentially birthed the video game industry, and it's not too hard to see why. Likewise, it's also very easy to see how the game was as popular as it is, just due to how easy it is to understand the basic rules of the game and how pick up and play it was, and how unlike anything else it probably would have been like in the arcades at the time. I think one of the things that really struck me when revisiting Pong for this video is just how similar the design philosophies between Pong and many of the games produced by Hazelight Studios are. Most of those games produced by Hazelight Studios, It Takes Two and Split Fiction, both of those games have multiplayer as a baked-in part of their design philosophy, which Pong itself also has. Not only could you make the argument that Pong is the first successful video game, but it's also the first successful multiplayer video game, and that I also think contributed in shaping the way that the industry looks at multiplayer video games. While Pong is incredibly important, for me personally, I do find it kind of difficult to actually go back to as how simple the game actually is. That being said, without Pong, I really don't think that you end up with video games as we understand them today. On top of that, there's also a ton of similarities with other tennis-style games that Pong actually has. For instance, there are a lot of similarities with the tennis game in Wii Sports, the pick-up-and-play nature of the games, and how simple they were to pick up and play and easy to understand and how intuitive they were, but also with other tennis-style games such as the Mario Tennis series. In principle, the same core concept applies between Pong and the Mario Tennis games. It's just that the Mario Tennis games have the advantage of having years of other developments within the industry and things such as power-ups and other little quirks that can affect how the game is played. But when you break both games down to their core levels and their core basic concepts, both of them trying to be some sort of electronic representation of tennis, they both essentially have the same core tenets as each other. There are a few different ways in which Pong can be played today, and it is a very widely available game through various different websites and collections that have been made available over the years. However, for this particular video, I played the version that was available as part of the Atari 50th Anniversary Celebration Expanded Edition collection. This particular release contains various different Atari-style games, but is more or less like an actual interactive museum with various different videos and arcade games that can be played on this timeline that gives you the history of Atari and some of the developers of many of these different games. And it ranges from arcade games that Atari worked on, like Pong, to more home console releases like they had on the 2600, all the way up to the Jaguar. But it is a very good piece of software, and it's a good way of being able to actually experience some of Atari's and some of gaming's earliest experiences that can be had. And I do very much recommend it because of the history of it and how well put together the software is, and the emulation actually is very good in the package. And it gives you a very good and accurate representation of what some of these games were like. I personally feel that Pong is a very simplistic game, and it definitely had a harder time sort of maintaining and holding my attention. This is not the first time that I've ever really played Pong, but it's not necessarily a game that I go back to and revisit very often. This is mostly due to me personally, just how simplistic I feel the game is. It lacks certain things that other arcade contemporaries from later on in the timeline that they had, such as high scores and a lot of that replayability. It still is a very replayable game, but you really need to be playing it with someone else. When I recorded the footage for this particular game, it was just me kind of fiddling with my Switch Pro controller and kind of going back and forth and that sort of thing. It is best to play it and experience with a friend, sort of like playing something like It Takes Two, where, you know, you can definitely try to play it by yourself, but then again, it would end up being more like you're trying to play chess by yourself, which isn't very much fun. And so Pong for me is very much a multiplayer game. It's a game that is worth going back and revisiting. If you're at all interested in the earliest days of video games, I do very much recommend that you go back and experience it. With all that in mind, I'd be very curious to hear from you guys and understand what experiences you might have with Pong and what your view of the game is, and maybe personal experiences you might have had from playing it in the arcade that I may not have necessarily had. Again, my experiences with Pong have been on plug-and-play consoles and little emulation things, and I think I might have played it once on my dad's 2600 way back when I was really young. But anyway, I really hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and that if you liked it, you would like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below and what you thought about the video and what are your thoughts on Pong.